Krishna. So today is the disappearance day of Shyamananda Prabhu. And therefore I've been asked to speak on Shyamananda Prabhu. Om Jnanatinandasya Ginanamsya Shakshīmritamya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manavishtam Savitam Yena Bhutale Swayambhuvakamayam Dayati Svatyantikam Vandeham Shri Shri Prakaranam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Gurun Savajatam Savinaratam Vitam Tam Srivavam Sarvetam Sadhutam Parijanasahitam Krishna Jyotirmayī-devī Shri Radha Krishna He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnānandavakate Gopesha Gopika Namaste Tata Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwanusute Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyacha Padinam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Śrīvāsa Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met the two brothers, Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, at that time known as Dabir Kas and Sakar Malik. Dabir Kas, Rupa Goswami was known as Dabir Kas, and Sanatana was known as Sakar Malik. And when they surrendered to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they reminded him that he was most merciful to the most fallen. And then they claimed to be the most fallen. They pointed out, we are more sinful than Jagai and Madai, because Jagai and Madai committed every possible sin, but we have protected, by being ministers in the government of the Nawab Hussain Shah, we've protected many Jagais and Madais. Therefore, we are many times more sinful. So, in this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was greatly pleased with their humility and bestowed his mercy upon them. And then instructed them to go to Vrindavan. And there in Vrindavan, to write about the teachings of that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had revealed to them in due course of time, and to excavate holy places. So it is said that at first Sanatana Goswami had installed the deities of Madan Mohan on Dwadas Aditya Tila, a hill that was overlooking the Yamuna, in the hope that this would be a nice place for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to stay when he would come. Later, under the direction of Rupa Goswami, also Radha Govinda was installed in Vrindavan. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes in Chaitanya Charitamrita how there were many thousands of devotees daily gathering in that temple of Radha Govinda. And so they were discussing the Chaitanya Mangal, which is later had a name change and became Chaitanya Bhagavat. So it became, they were absorbed in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so they spent their time in Vrindavan. And so we can see how a Sangha began to form in Vrindavan. And Rupa and Sanatan, they were the inspiration of that Sangha. They were basically such amazing personalities. It is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita that any Bengali that would come and visit Vrindavan would ask, how are Rupa and Sanatan? And news would travel. They are doing this, they're fasting now, they're sleeping under different trees every night, and so on. They are always chanting. And so the glories of Rupa and Sanatan were spreading widely, and everyone was greatly inspired by their association. It is said that different devotees joined them, including Krishnadas Kaviraj, who also was there as an associate of Rupa and Sanatan. And of course, other Goswamis came, Gopal Bhatta, who had met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in South India and in Sri Rangam when he was a child. His uncle, Prabodhananda, went to Vrindavan, and Bhugarva Goswami, who was there, seated deeply in a basement under the deities of Radha Govinda and chanting there. And so he got the name Bhugarva, one who's in the womb of the earth. So all these amazing associates of the Goswamis began to gather in Vrindavan. And at one point, as time moved along, it was Rupa and Sanatan left this world, but Jiva Goswami, who was a nephew, a next generation, Jiva Goswami, became the Mahant. He became the leader of the Vaishnavas in this school of the Goswamis. Subsequently, a next generation appeared, Narottam, Srinivas, and Shamananda. And these three, they were immediately recognized as special personalities, as personalities who were very worthy of representing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it was very clear that now the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going into the hands safely of the next generation. And Jiva Goswami arranged that copies of the manuscripts of the writings of Rupa and Sanatan were all packed in a great trunk or in various trunks, and he dispatched the three of them to Bengal, right? So that the devotees of Bengal could also get this transcendental knowledge. Lord Chaitanya, after he took sannyas, had been requested by his mother to go to Jagannath Puri. And so Lord Chaitanya pointed out to Nityananda, who had followed him there, and so many other associates of Mahaprabhu would visit every year for Rath Yatra and stay 3 months. And Lord Chaitanya told Nityananda that because my mother has asked me to stay here in Puri, I cannot really go to Bengal and preach there. So you should go on my behalf. And Nityananda assembled a number of associates and went to Navadvip. It wasn't easy to find the way because they were in ecstatic love of God and they were doing these kirtans and they were just so absorbed that they missed the turns again and again. They walked past the turn and someone says, are we really going in the right direction? No, let's ask. Oh no, you have to, that's back, you have to go back. Then they go back, but they go too far back. So I said, no, it's ahead. So like this, it took a while before they made it to Vrindavan. But that was okay, because the whole way they were just absorbed in ecstatic kirtan and ecstatic love. So, Nityananda, he preached in Bengal, especially through Harinam Sankirtan. Everywhere he performed powerful kirtan. And he stayed in the Saptagram area and in places like Panihati. We just observed that Panihati festival. And so in all these places, they're sort of in the same area. Nityananda stayed there for 3 months and did amazing kirtans. Nityananda, one of his followers was Udaran Datta Thakur, who was from a Suvarnavarnik family. And Udaran Datta Thakur gave Nityananda all these jewels and gold that he used to wear. And to us, Udaran Datta is significant because every year in the month of February there is a mela in the birthplace of Udaran Datta Thakur. And Srila Prabhupada said that when he was young, that his family would take him there every year because Prabhupada said they were born in that caste, in that family lineage. As the Deys, they were also part of that lineage. So the whole family, the Deys and Maliks, they would gather there for a mela. So I think it's significant. I also think we should claim that mela. ISKCON should go there. Harinam Ruchi and Mahavishnu Swami, if yes time can go there. That would be really nice. And all of us. Anyway, so in Bengal, kirtan just went everywhere. And everyone became swept up in the ecstasy of kirtan. And Chaitanya Bhagavat describes that at length. It said that there was a group of young boys with Nityananda who had kirtan for 30 days non-stop. And they became more and more ecstatic, and at the end they became so ecstatic that they ripped trees out of the ground. It is also said that old men who usually can barely get up from a chair suddenly jumped up into the trees and danced on the branches of the trees, and even the thin branches, and they didn't break. So the ecstasy by which Nityananda flooded Bengal was overwhelming, and the movement absorbed all kinds of people. Amongst the participants of Nityananda's mercy were Muslims, there were all kinds of, there were Buddhists, there were all kinds of Vaishnavas. They didn't always get the philosophy right, what shall we say, but they were somehow or other part of that kirtan. So, Vrindavan was the place where the philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were understood in depth by the Goswamis. Vrindavan was the place where they were Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipano Sadharma Samstapako, that where they were establishing the principles of religion, the Saddharma, the true principles of religion, based on revealed scriptures. And they scrutinizingly studied these scriptures and wrote books. In other words, they brought a lot of evidence supporting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings from many scriptures. And we find such things in Hari Bhakti Vilas, we find such things in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Because when we look in these books, we see that they are full of quotes from many sources establishing the Siddhanta of Krishna consciousness. So when Narottam, Srinivas and Shyamananda came to Vrindavan, all three of them were brilliant. They thoroughly absorbed the teachings of the Goswamis. They, like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, were very familiar with the literature of the Goswamis. They knew their Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right? Yes, they did. They knew the various scriptures very well. So the conclusions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission were very clear to them. Namo Mahavananyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namade Gora Trisa Namaha. To freely distribute the topmost love of God to the most fallen, which is that topmost love of God is found amongst the residents of Vrindavan, right? Because they are just totally overwhelmed in unalloyed love of God. Never a speck of selfishness or self-centeredness within them. Their only interest is to serve, to please the Lord, and to increase the pleasure of the Lord. And of course, increasing the pleasure of the Lord means to bring more and more people to dive into this ocean of transcendental love. So yes, to dive into that ocean of transcendental love. An ocean we visualize as something that extends in all directions and you cannot see the limits of it. When you are on the ocean, there is only water in all directions. Right? And so, in this way, an ocean of praying, Krishna praying, in all directions, within the hearts of endless devotees. That praying is not just some sort of, sometimes the Mayavadis speak and then there is all-pervading love, like some sort of sticky, sentimental, wet blanket that you throw over the whole universe, called love. But no, love is personal. Love means a person is involved. In personal calamity, thou hast moved. Absolute is sentient. Thou has proved. Right? The Absolute has a heart. Sentient. So it is a matter of the heart. So Shyamananda, along with Narottam and Srinivas, had deeply, deeply absorbed this mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to flood the entire world with transcendental love. This is the business of the Sankirtan devotee. So they were really the first Sankirtan party. And we actually see that there's even a record that there were book scores. They were sending book scores back to Jiva Goswami. Yes, so many books distributed. I forgot the numbers, not thousands, but numbers. They were sending scores to Jiva Goswami. Yeah, so they were Sankirtan devotees. Of course, nowadays, if you have the money, you can just call a printer and say, print 100,000 Bhagavad Gitas, and it could be delivered quite soon after. It's just like printers can do it in a couple of weeks if you pay. That's possible. But in those days, every manuscript had to be hand copied, so it was a little more difficult to get the copies. But this is exactly what transpired. We remember they went to Bengal and they became robbed by this king, Archbir, and who through an astrologer had seen that some man would come with a great treasure. So, okay, yes, he liked his astrologer very much and said, yes, let's collect this treasure. So they did and stole it. But then, when he opened the boxes, he found manuscripts. And, what is this? Where's the gold? Where are the jewels? But when he started to read some of these manuscripts, then he realized that he had the greatest jewels. It was, of course, a great embarrassment for the three Sankirtan devotees. It's like, your van with books is stolen. What you gonna do, right? You're standing there, you come back, books gone, van gone. Certainly, what you're gonna tell the temple president? So they were a little bit concerned, but eventually they had to tell the news, right? So what happened is, they were gone, these books, and so what to do? So Narottam, he was from Kateri. Narottam, that is in North Bengal. So he went to, nowadays in Bangladesh on the northern side. So Narottam went to the north, to Kateri. Srinivas, he stayed to look for if there was a trace of the books, and Shamananda went to Jagannath Puri, to Orissa, to preach. So in this way they went to 3 different places. Then what transpired is that somehow or other Srinivas, he found the books. The books were found. So that was a big thing. Right? Then copies were made. Srinivas converted the king who had stolen the manuscripts, initiated him and engaged him making copies of those books. Then copies were sent to Narottam and Shamananda, who engaged Narottam. His father was the big zamindar, the big ruler of a large district. So he engaged many brahmanas in making copies, and Shamananda preached to the kings in Jagannath, in Orissa, and they also made many copies. So in this way, they had many copies of many manuscripts. Then they assembled. They assembled all together for a big festival in Kateri, in Narottam's place. The date of that festival is estimated as to be somewhere 1576 that took place. And that was the first Gorpurnim festival that was celebrated after the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And for that festival, everybody came. It was a huge festival, huge. And the devotees came from Bengal, And Achyutananda, the son of Advaitacharya, who was only a small boy when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Navadvip at that time. Achyutananda now was leading a party. Right? So Advaitacharya had also passed on. Some say he became 125 years old. And but Achyutananda brought a party. Janavamata was representing Lord Nityananda, who had also disappeared at the time. Right? So she was the senior most as the wife of Lord Nityananda, and she was presiding over the function, and she was seated on the Vyasasana and so on. But she also went into the kitchen to cook for everybody. So she was not just sitting there waiting for her feet to be washed, but she was also serving all the Vaishnavas and cooking, yes. And prior to going to Ketari, Janavamata had gone to Vrindavan to hear from Rupa and Sanatana. So she had directly heard Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu explained by Rupa Goswami. So Janavamata was there. And when all these manuscripts were brought, when Narottam, Srinivas and Shamananda came and brought manuscripts, brought these books for everyone, then it was Janavamata who actually certified, yes, these books are authorized. Okay, if Janavamata says it, then they're authorized. So she must know. She is the wife of Nityananda. So, in this way, the books were accepted. And in that festival in Ketari, many deities were installed. Also, everyone got copies of these manuscripts. So they all got a full set of books. And there were amazing kirtans. Narottam was leading the most amazing kirtans. And it said that these kirtans, they were slow and deep and meditative, and everyone got really, really into it. And then it said, then the Panchatattva appeared, according to Bhakti Ratnakar, in that festival, and everyone was in ecstasy and overwhelmed. And then the Panchatattva disappeared. And then everyone cried in separation to a point where the mud, the earth became muddy. Quite a lot of tears then. Right, that's for sure. So the Ketari festival was like a revolution. It wasn't just, okay, the first Gorpanim festival and happened to be organized by Shamananda, Narottam and Srinivas. No, that Ketari festival was a revolution in the sense that it brought the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the form of the writings of the Goswamis to all the devotees of Bengal. When the deities were installed in Ketari, Ketari became a place where everyone would go, whether the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would assemble. So there was a place where they could meet. There were teachings. And in this way, the movement in Bengal was finally fully solidified and aligned with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because although initially Nityananda had so liberally just thrown out the net and anybody and everybody could just be part of it, and principles and things like that were not really so much talked about. But in the writings of Rupa and Sanatana, actually the entire process of sadhana bhakti was given, and the entire process for cultivating love of God was systematically being taught. And so finally, for the first time, the people in Bengal became real sadhakas and began to follow the principles of Pancharatra, we see that the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is based on the Pancharatra. Pancharatra is basically giving us prescribed rules and regulations of behavior that are favorable for cultivating devotional service, which include worship of the deity, which includes just many standards of behavior, like putting tilak in so many places, wearing the guntimala, following Ekadasi, and so many principles that are being followed. 64 limbs are described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, 64 aspects of bhakti. So all that started after Ketari. So we can understand it wasn't just, the first Korpanin festival, that was nice. It wasn't just an ecstatic festival. It was like a revolution. It was a revolution. So really, these three persons, Narottam, Srinivas and Shyamananda, they made that revolution. And it was their vision to do so. And although in the beginning they sent some smaller book scores to Jiva Goswami, there in Ketari, the book distribution really picked up. You know? Even today, in the Royal Asiatic Society in Calcutta, there are many manuscripts from that festival. They have thousands of manuscripts from that festival that are still there now in Calcutta, being kept in the Royal Asiatic Society. So it's very interesting how this role of Ketari. Now, you may wonder, was this lecture about Shyamananda? Oh yes, but you spoke about everybody. You didn't. I thought that you were going to speak the whole lecture about Shyamananda. Exactly. That's exactly what I did. Yes. Because Shyamananda, I spoke about the heart of Shyamananda today, of really what moved him, what actually drove him, what actually was his life and soul. Right? That there's a story and how he got some tilak from Radharani. We can get into that, but I'm not going to. Because that was special mercy, not to be overlooked, but this preaching mission. That was what Shyamananda took birth for. That is what Shyamananda's contribution is to this sampradaya. That is like really what he achieved. And on the disappearance day of a Vaishnava, it is said that we are observing the appearance day and the disappearance day. And it's said the disappearance day is, in one sense, more important than the appearance day, because on the disappearance day, the Acharya has revealed his pastimes. Right? He has revealed his pastimes to us. So on this disappearance day of Shyamananda Prabhu, we are praying to Shyamananda Prabhu that we also may get that Sankirtan spirit. Not just that we may be fired up, okay, it's one thing to be fired up. That is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm can come in the association of devotees, when we're all like, have a kirtan and we jump through the ceiling and then we go on the street and we all have a big harinam and then we distribute books, then we're just carried by the enthusiasm of the devotees. Just like in Bengal, so many were carried by the enthusiasm of Nityananda's party. But when Krishna consciousness goes very deep within the heart, then one person, not in the association of so many others, but then one man can go alone, like Srila Prabhupada, who crossed the ocean alone, who was in New York City alone. I mean, New York is such a place where normally you want to know where you're going to stay. It's good to know where you're going to stay. Kind of. You wouldn't just, in New York, just leave it to chance. You wouldn't want to stay in the subway, would you? And Prabhupada just went there in his old age, when one is vulnerable physically, when one is, what could he do? An old man. What if someone would have attacked him? Could he defend himself? Not very easy. On the Bowery, I mean, Lower East Side, rough area, drawn. But Prabhupada was Abhay Charanaravinda. He was fearless. So, fearless not because of some foolish bravery. Well, what happened to me? No. Fearless because Charanaravinda, because he had fully taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So he knew Krishna is always with me, and he will protect me. And whatever happens is perfect anyway. Nothing can happen that is not perfect. There's nothing wrong. In the material plane, we think, oh, why are these things happening? This is not good, that is not good. But everything is perfect. Okay, that doesn't mean if this movement is attacked that's perfect, but that's also part of a perfect arrangement to bring a defense out of us. Just like when the Bhaktivedanta Manor was attacked in the sense that they wanted to close it, no worship allowed, then as a response, right, such a protest came, and government connections were made, and a road was made, and that was the campaign, that was the beginning of like the whole manor going to another level. So we see that the opposition actually forced the devotees to rise to another level. Anyway, so I spoke a little bit about Srila Prabhupada and how he struggled single-handedly. And we should see that Shyamananda went single-handedly to Orissa, alone, one man in Orissa, representing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and establishing his movement, begging disciples, and his disciple made disciples, the movement just, Rasikananda was the next, and it just exploded in Orissa. So they did tremendous preaching, tremendous preachers of this movement. So we pray that some of that depth that we may also deeply penetrate in the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, both in achar and prachar, in our own behavior and in our preaching, that we may become absorbed deeply in that ocean of love, and from there even have the strength to spread Krishna consciousness, even if he would be all alone. Chaitanya Charitamrita said that even one of the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can deliver the entire universe. If Srila Prabhupada would not have come, we would have not believed that statement. We would have said, well, but Prabhupada proved that statement to us. And we can understand that Shyamananda was equally so, such an agent of the Lord, a carrier of the mercy of the Lord, and one of such associates can deliver the entire universe. Therefore, it's important to commemorate Shyamananda Prabhu, to pray to him, that we may also go deeper in our love for Krishna, and that may translate into a soft and compassionate heart, and that we will just everywhere be an instrument of distributing the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yaradeke Taraka Krishna Pradesh Amara Gyaya Guru Hari Tara Edesh. That whomever we meet, we may give this Krishna Upadesh. Instructions from Krishna, instructions about Krishna. And this way, deliver the entire world. Thank you. Any questions, any comments?
Misunderstood or not understood properly, but I came to hear that when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was looking for a copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he couldn't find anywhere in the whole of West Bengal. Mm-hmm. So that thought just came to my mind in terms of what you were saying about the book distribution.
The Chaitanya Charitamrita is a book that wasn't written yet in 1576 during Khetri. In the final chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is mentioned that the Chaitanya Charitamrita was finished in 1615. So it's a lot later. Some scholars say that Krishnadas Kaviraj started writing the CC in 1576. And he only, in other words, that it took him almost 40 years to complete it. Now whether that's true or not, that's we're not sure. But it definitely took him many years to write it. But he only finished in 1615. So the books of the Goswamis were distributed, but not the CC. Mind you that the Chaitanya Charitamrita became so famous in Bengal that they even had Chaitanya Charitamrita Mandir, temples where the CC was on the altar. No deity, just the CC. And they were worshipping the CC. The CC took Bengal by storm. Now, at the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Chaitanya Charitamrita was getting very famous everywhere. And that is recorded by historians. Because the interesting thing about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is because it evolved in the last 500 years. That's still historical time, so you can trace back many elements of it. So the CC was very prominent. However, then we got Sahaja movements that rose to the fore. The philosophy became covered, and so they were not interested in those books anymore. They wanted just some Rasika literature about Radha and Krishna's pastimes, and the focus shifted there. And as a result, the CC sort of disappeared in the background, and other literatures disappeared in the background. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was then going on together with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta on a revival mission of Mahaprabhu's movement, and start again publishing such things. So, of course, it was still available at the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It was also, you couldn't just, Bhaktivinoda couldn't just go on the net and go on Amazon and Google Chaitanya Charitamrita and order one, and get it delivered to his house a few days later. He had to find somewhere where there was such a manuscript. Then the manuscript had to be hand copied, and then it could, things were still at an early stage. How many, whether there were any printed copies around at that time, that may have been hard, see. It wasn't like now, where we've cut down half the Amazon forest. And it's funny that it's called Amazon. Because the Amazon is delivered, comes in cardboard boxes to our door. Those are the trees, anyway, so you have to look at it like that. Manuscripts in itself were rare compared to now. Books were there were printed books, but how many printed copies were available? Nothing like now. So it was a little more difficult to find.
Do you think the same could happen again?
Of course. Not only do I think, I'm sure it will happen again. This modern world will collapse. This artificial world of technology and so on will collapse. And it goes back to a more natural state of life. Therefore, I think there is a window right now, a short window, where now we can order the 100,000 Bhagavad Gitas or, any number. And now we can actually flood the world with these books. It will not always be so easy as now. Yeah. So it could well be printing press will disappear. Of course, the devotees should be careful to preserve printing presses and the knowledge of printing presses because we need them. So as long as book distribution can go on, it should go on. But now is a special time for book distribution because now it's so easy, so easily available, these books. So it should be widely distributed now.
Marty, I came to understand this because the old CCs and stuff, if you look on
eBay. OCC, I don't know what that means.
Old copies of the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Oh, old CCs.
If you go on eBay, the commies have understood and they've got really high extortionate prices. But we may be thinking, let's just get a new one. There are no copies available in the temple.
Yeah.
If you're saying the same point, that's what I came to see.
Yeah. Well, there are book collectors. Like, some people like to collect books. They just collect books. They don't read them. But they collect it. And there's even a term for this. It's called bibliomania. And I have a book about a man who was like so much into collecting books that he threw all the furniture out of his room and he just had books. And he made a seat of books and a desk of books and a bed of books and everything is books. But he wouldn't read them. Just collect them. So maybe we also sometimes are a bit guilty of that, collecting books and not reading books. Yeah.
Marge, you touch upon the point of Narottam Das Thakur installing the deities in Keturigram. So I read the pastime and I just want to ask a question. One of the deities he installed, one of the deities Narottam Das Thakur installed was Gaur Lakshmi Priya. So I was thinking, what's the significance for us as Gaudiya Vaishnavas? Usually we worship Gaur Nitai or top like Gaur Gadadhar. So what's the, for instance, significance of for us Gaur Lakshmi Priya?
I don't know. I mean, no. I just see her as the servant of the Lord. I don't think we have to try and draw so much esoteric meaning out of that. I think that the Lord, the focus of Lord Chaitanya is obviously on two aspects, his internal purpose and his external purpose. So when we look at Lord Chaitanya and associates, we can look at Lord Chaitanya and his internal purpose. So Lakshmi Priya, a female consort, the female consort of the Lord. We can look at that. Or we look at the external purpose. Now for us, it is through the external purpose that we go to the internal. Narottam Das Thakur said, you dive into the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and emerge in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So we go to, therefore our focus is Gauranitai, who are, described in CCs, the sun and the moon, who are, they drive away the Nessians and so on. So that's our business, to focus on the external in our activities, but to philosophically understand the internal nature of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Then we get to work in the external mood of Mahaprabhu, and then we'll emerge. So then we can deeply contemplate. Gaur Lakshmi Priya is showing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Krishna, with his female consort, which he is. But of course Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has another purpose. He comes to show the mood of Srimati Radharani. And that's a deeper manifestation of his mercy, because he comes to show that love of God. So I don't think that this deity would become a central deity from a theological perspective in our movement. That's why we have Panchatattva as the central focus. But actually we are worshipping Gaur Lakshmi Priya.
Thank you.
I don't know, time-wise, where we're going, but I think, okay, yes, you're the last one.
Hare Krishna. You mentioned the mood of Shamananda Pandit and the heart, his heart being in Sankirtan. Sometimes I feel that it can be hard, I guess in such a big community, to sort of really get out there and preach boldly. And sometimes I wonder, is it the case that you focus on developing your sadhana, your connection, and then with that depth, of connection, the spirit of Sankirtan comes to you and you kind of feel that need to share? Or whether it's the case that you need to push yourself, even at the beginning, and even in the early stages, to come out of your comfort zone and preach boldly at the beginning, and then that develops the mood. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, yes. Yes, preaching is not easy, right? It's not that the people out there are just waiting. Can you please explain to me everything about Krishna consciousness? Sometimes you need someone like that, but many times you need people that growl at you and no time, make ugly faces. So it is not always so easy to preach. And so yes, in the beginning we are have to force ourselves a bit, and there may be fear. There may be, and we have to overcome that, and that can be very difficult. So then we are out with devotees and in good associations, and we get enough support of that association, and then, okay, somehow or other, we try, and we gain more confidence, and realize that even if they growl at us, that we don't die. Gosh, wow, I'm still alive. And then, well, wasn't that bad, survived that one. So after a while, you go, okay, what are they going to do to me, No, okay. You always have to think, the ones that say no today, they are the ones that will say yes tomorrow. They get purified by the association. You just imagine. You get something that's offered to you. Excuse me, sir, it's like we're handing them out today. No, not interested. Are you really not interested? This could be interesting. So, no. Because I think you want my money. No. But maybe it's interesting. So sometimes these naysayers, they come up later and say, excuse me, can I have one of those books? because the curiosity has been there all along. They've seen you 100 times, and finally they come. They get purified and develop the desire to know. So we got to be a little patient. So we're patient. Okay, we don't die. So gradually we gain some confidence, and we can make it. Yeah. Then of course, as we get more deeper in Krishna consciousness, we get a stronger and stronger desire to pass on this mercy and to just we get deeper sense of compassion. When you have something better, then you feel like I want to give this to others. This Krishna consciousness is so nice, the whole world must have it. So the more we get absorbed, the more we'll naturally want to give it to others. That's the advanced level. Then book distribution becomes nectar. And, well, then, you know, there are levels that I don't know about. The nectar of book distribution. So I'll stop now. So thank you very, very much. And Shamananda Prabhu ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan Yajna ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava jai.
Sohlas Kadam Kadam Swami Maharaj ki jai.